There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the noise of the outer world begins to fade, not because the world has grown quieter, but because something within has grown stronger. You begin to feel life from a deeper place, sensing truths you can't quite explain, yet you know them to be real. That, dear one, is the whisper of awakening. You might not wear the robe of a monk or sit for hours in meditation, but enlightenment is drawing near, often hidden beneath the ordinary moments of your day. The signs are subtle, gentle, and personal. Let us journey through them together. When you no longer need to win every argument, you realize peace is more valuable than being right. Silence becomes your victory, understanding your greatest weapon. 2. You feel emotions deeply, but they no longer control you. You allow anger, sadness, and joy to pass through you like waves, knowing they do not define who you are. You've stopped drowning, now you're floating. 3. You begin to see patterns, not problems. What once looked like chaos now appears as divine choreography. You understand that everything, every delay, every loss was part of your preparation, for you lose interest in judging others. Where once you saw faults, you now see reflections. You begin to realize that every person who crosses your path carries a lesson your soul called forth. 5. You crave solitude, but you're never lonely. Silence becomes a sanctuary. You no longer fear being alone because you sense the presence of something vast and loving with you. 6. You trust life again. Even when things fall apart, something within you whispers, this too has purpose. You may not know why, but you feel the deeper rhythm beneath the surface chaos. 7. You forgive without needing an apology. You've outgrown resentment because you see the hidden pain behind people's actions. You understand that forgiveness is not weakness, it's freedom. 8. You feel connected to everything. A tree, a stranger, the sound of the wind, all remind you of the same source. You sense that life is not happening to you but through you. 9. You let go more easily. You stop clinging to what must end, knowing that endings are simply gateways for new beginnings. You no longer chase, you allow. You live more from love than fear. The world hasn't changed, but you have. You begin to move from reaction to response, from resistance to surrender. Love becomes your natural language, and then something beautiful happens. You stop seeking enlightenment because you realize it was never somewhere to arrive. It was what you were becoming all along. The awakening is not loud, it's quiet. It doesn't shout, it hums, and its song is the same one your soul has been singing since the beginning of time. Inner stillness is not the absence of noise. It is the quiet presence of awareness within the noise. It is the sacred space where the soul finally exhales, where thought slows its endless march, and something deeper begins to breathe through you. Most people spend their lives seeking peace outside themselves, through achievements, possessions, or approval, believing that calmness is a reward for having controlled the outer world. But true stillness does not come from control. It comes when you stop resisting life as it is. It begins the moment you realize that silence is not empty, it is full of answers. The awakening of inner stillness often happens quietly, almost unnoticed. It's not an event, but a gradual unfolding. At first, you may simply catch yourself pausing before reacting, sensing that anger or anxiety is rising, but choosing not to feed it. Then, in that small gap between impulse and action, something timeless appears. That gap is where your awareness lives, unchanging, unshaken. The more you rest in that awareness, the more you begin to experience a subtle yet powerful shift. Life still happens, people still disappoint, plans still change, but the way you experience it transforms completely. Instead of being dragged by every emotion, you become the observer of them. You see them as waves passing across the surface of an infinite ocean. You are not the waves, you are the ocean itself. This stillness is not passive or detached. It's not numbness or indifference. It's a living calm that allows you to respond rather than react. It gives you the ability to meet pain with compassion and uncertainty with curiosity. When you are rooted in inner stillness, even in chaos, something in you remains steady, like the center of a storm that never moves. It's the state where you can hear intuition whisper softly beneath the mind's noise. It's where wisdom replaces fear and acceptance replaces struggle. Many mistake enlightenment for a dramatic revelation or divine encounter, but more often it begins as a deepening quiet within. It's when you start realizing that you don't need to chase happiness or run from discomfort. You simply need to be asterisk. In that being, clarity emerges naturally. You see how much of your suffering came from resisting what is, wishing it to be something else. The moment you surrender that resistance, peace rushes in, not as something new, but as something that was always there, waiting beneath the surface. Inner stillness reconnects you with your essence, the part untouched by circumstance. It is what allows you to face the noise of the world without losing the music of your soul. In that quiet space, you no longer feel separate from life. You sense that everything is unfolding as it should, and your role is simply to stay awake to it. True awakening is not about retreating from the world. It's about bringing the stillness you've discovered within back into every moment, every breath, every act of living. Emotional freedom is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to feel deeply without being consumed, to experience pain without being defined by it, and to express love without fear of loss. It marks a turning point in spiritual growth when you stop being a prisoner of your feelings and begin to use them as instruments of understanding. Emotional freedom is not about suppressing what you feel. It is about creating space between your emotions and your identity. When you are free, you can say, "I feel anger," instead of "I am angry." That subtle shift changes everything. As you mature spiritually, you start recognizing emotions as visitors, temporary energies passing through the house of your soul. You stop clinging to them because you know they are not who you are. Fear, jealousy, grief, joy, and excitement all arise and fade, yet the awareness that witnesses them remains. That awareness is your true self, the unshakable core behind the ever-changing surface of feeling. When you discover this, you no longer run from sadness or chase happiness. You simply allow both to pass naturally. This inner maturity is not something learned overnight. It unfolds through experience, through moments when life tests your patience, breaks your plans, or challenges your heart. In those moments, your reactions reveal your level of inner freedom. When you can respond with calm rather than chaos, compassion rather than blame, you are growing. Each emotional storm becomes an opportunity to deepen your peace. The situations that once triggered you now become mirrors, showing where healing is still needed. With each lesson learned, you reclaim another piece of your power. Emotional freedom also transforms how you relate to others. You stop needing people to behave a certain way to keep your inner world stable. You no longer rely on their validation to feel worthy or loved. You understand that peace is an inside job, not a gift anyone can give or take away. This detachment is not coldness. It is the purest form of love, because it allows others to be exactly who they are without judgment or control. You meet them from a place of wholeness rather than need. As you evolve, you realize emotions are sacred messengers. Anger shows you where boundaries are needed. Fear points toward where courage is waiting to be born. Sadness reveals what you value deeply. Joy reminds you of your alignment with truth. Each feeling carries wisdom when you listen instead of resist. By honoring emotions without letting them dominate, you develop balance, the essence of spiritual maturity. In emotional freedom, life loses its power to shake your foundation. You remain open, responsive, and alive, but not fragile. You learn to move with the rhythm of experience rather than fight against it. The waves still rise and fall, but you are no longer tossed around. You have learned to surf them with grace. This is the quiet strength of a soul that has awakened to its own sovereignty. Forgiveness and understanding are not acts of weakness, but expressions of higher wisdom. They arise when the heart has seen enough pain to recognize that holding on only deepens suffering. To forgive is not to excuse the wrong or erase the wound. It is to release yourself from the emotional chains that bind you to it. Forgiveness does not say, "What happened was okay." It says, "I choose peace over bitterness." This choice is a sign of spiritual maturity, a recognition that resentment poisons the one who holds it more than the one who caused it. True forgiveness is not given from the mind. It blooms from the soul when understanding has deepened enough to see the larger picture. Understanding is the bridge that leads to forgiveness. When you begin to see that every action, even the hurtful ones, comes from a place of confusion, pain, or fear, compassion naturally awakens. People act from the level of awareness they possess. Some are lost, some are wounded, and some are simply unaware. Realizing this does not justify their actions, but allows you to step outside the cycle of reaction. You start to see that their behavior was a reflection of their own inner struggle, not a reflection of your worth. When that insight takes root, forgiveness stops being forced. It becomes the natural result of understanding. The process of forgiving is often slow and layered. At first, your mind may resist, replaying the story, keeping the pain alive as proof of how you were wronged. But with time, reflection, and compassion, something softens. You begin to see that your attachment to the pain keeps you connected to the past, preventing you from living freely in the present. Every time you release a grudge, you reclaim a piece of your energy that was trapped in the memory of what hurt you. Forgiveness becomes an act of self-liberation, not a favor to anyone else. When you forgive, you are not forgetting. You are transforming the energy of the experience. The memory may remain, but it loses its power to wound. You remember without reliving. This transformation is wisdom in motion. It allows you to carry the lesson but leave behind the burden. Understanding adds depth to that wisdom. It opens your eyes to the humanity in everyone, even those who have caused harm. You begin to see that life is a vast school and everyone, including yourself, is both a student and a teacher. The more you live from understanding, the less you need to defend your heart. Forgiveness becomes your natural state because you recognize that peace is your true nature. You realize that anger clouds perception, while forgiveness clears it. Through understanding, you rise above the smallness of the ego into the vastness of the spirit, where compassion flows effortlessly. In that space, you are no longer defined by what was done to you, but by the wisdom you gained from it. This is where forgiveness turns from an act into a way of being, a quiet strength that radiates freedom, clarity, and love. Connection replaces separation the moment you begin to see through the illusion that you are alone. The sense of isolation that once felt so real starts to dissolve as awareness expands beyond the boundaries of me and you. It is not that individuality disappears, rather, it becomes clear that individuality is only one expression of a much larger unity. The awakening heart begins to sense that everything is woven from the same invisible thread, that the same breath animates every living thing. You realize that the tree outside your window, the stranger passing on the street, and even the one who once hurt you are part of the same vast energy moving through life. Separation is a creation of the ego. It thrives on comparison, judgment, and fear. It tells you that you must compete to survive, defend to be safe, and stand apart to be worthy. But when awareness deepens, you begin to see that the ego's story is only a shadow cast by the light of oneness. The more you awaken, the more you feel this truth, not as an idea, but as a living experience. You start to sense connection in simple moments, in the warmth of sunlight, in the kindness of a stranger, in the quiet hum of the world around you. These experiences no longer feel random. They feel like reminders of something ancient within you, something that has always known unity. When connection replaces separation, love stops being selective. It no longer depends on who deserves it, who agrees with you, or who returns it. Love becomes the natural expression of understanding that everything is part of the same whole. You begin to see yourself in others, their fears, their hopes, their pain. You recognize that the same consciousness looking through your eyes looks through theirs. Judgment loses its meaning because you can no longer condemn what you see as part of yourself. Compassion grows effortlessly, not as a moral duty, but as a spontaneous response to truth. This realization also transforms how you relate to the world. You start living with greater care, not because you are told to, but because you feel the sacredness in all things. Hurting another feels like hurting yourself, and helping another feels like healing yourself. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to honor the divine connection that underlies existence. even conflict becomes less about right or wrong and more about remembering what unites beyond the disagreement. As connection deepens, a quiet joy emerges, a sense of belonging that doesn't depend on circumstance or company. You could be sitting alone and still feel surrounded by life's embrace. You begin to understand that separation was never truly real. It was only a lens through which you viewed the world before your heart opened. The awakening of connection is the return to truth, the remembrance that we were never divided, only unaware. In that realization, peace becomes not something to seek, but something that naturally unfolds within and radiates outward to everything you touch. Trust in life is the quiet surrender that arises when you stop fighting what is and start believing in what could be. It is not blind optimism or passive acceptance, but a deep recognition that life itself is intelligent, that behind every event, every delay, and every disappointment, there is a hidden order working for your growth. Trust blooms when you finally realize that even the most uncertain paths are part of your becoming. It's the faith that whispers, even in darkness, that the light has not disappeared. It is simply waiting to be seen. Inner faith does not require proof or promises. It is born from the understanding that everything happens for a reason, even when the reason is not yet visible. The human mind constantly seeks control, wanting to predict and plan, fearing the unknown. But life cannot be controlled, it can only be lived. Trust in life means loosening the grip of fear and allowing events to unfold with grace. It's the courage to walk forward without knowing every step, believing that each one will appear when it's time. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to wonder, "What is this teaching me?" That shift in perception marks the birth of true faith. When you trust life, uncertainty no longer feels like a threat. It becomes an adventure. You begin to see how every twist and turn carries meaning. The heartbreak that once shattered you may have opened your heart to deeper love. The failure that humbled you may have carved space for greater wisdom. Trust allows you to look back and see that even the most painful experiences were preparing you for something higher. It replaces anxiety with acceptance and resistance with flow. You learn to meet challenges not as punishments, but as invitations to grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Faith in life is not about expecting everything to go your way. It's about knowing that whatever happens, you will find your way through it. It's the quiet confidence that you are guided, even when you cannot see the path. When you live from this place, fear loses its grip. You stop needing guarantees because you begin to feel supported by something larger than yourself. There is a sense of companionship with existence, as if life itself is walking beside you, whispering, "Trust me, I know the way." This trust transforms how you face the unknown. You no longer collapse under uncertainty or cling to control. You move with the rhythm of life rather than against it. You find peace in not knowing, because faith fills the space that doubt once occupied. Trust in life is the purest form of surrender. Not giving up, but giving in to the flow of something wiser than the mind. And in that surrender, you discover freedom. The freedom to live fully, love deeply, and walk through this world with a heart unafraid of what comes next. Love is the final sign of awakening because it is the essence of all that exists. It is not the fragile emotion that changes with circumstance, but the eternal force that holds the universe together. When you reach a point in your journey where love becomes your natural response to life, you have stepped into the deepest truth of who you are. Love is not something you give or receive. It is what you are. Every layer of fear, anger, and judgment that falls away reveals the boundless love that has always lived within you. To live in love is to see beyond appearances. You no longer view people through the lens of what they have done or said, but through the understanding that every being is doing their best from their level of awareness. Love allows you to meet others where they are, without needing them to change to earn your acceptance. You stop keeping score, stop withholding affection as punishment, and stop protecting your heart behind walls of pride. Instead, your heart becomes open, steady, and fearless. Love no longer depends on who deserves it. It flows freely because withholding it feels unnatural. This kind of love transforms every aspect of your being. It softens the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you walk through the world. It gives you patience where you once had anger, compassion where you once had blame, and peace where you once had pain. Love becomes the inner compass guiding your choices, leading you to act with kindness even when it's not returned. You no longer seek to win, you seek to understand. You no longer need to prove your worth, because love reminds you that you already are enough. When love becomes your foundation, fear loses its voice. You begin to live with a quiet confidence, knowing that everything and everyone is connected through this same divine energy. Love gives you the strength to forgive, to heal, and to keep your heart open even after it has been broken. It teaches you that vulnerability is not weakness but the gateway to truth. You realize that every experience, joyful or painful, was simply guiding you back to love. As awareness deepens, you start to feel love not just for people, but for life itself. You see it in the rising sun, the laughter of a child, the stillness of the night sky. Love becomes the language through which you understand existence. It dissolves the illusion of separation and reveals that everything you have ever sought, peace, happiness, purpose, was hidden inside this simple, powerful state of being. When love is all that remains, enlightenment is no longer a distant goal. It is the natural state of your awakened heart. You see the sacred in all things, and even the smallest moments become divine. Love is the final sign because it is the first truth, the eternal pulse beneath creation, the mirror of the divine, and the ultimate expression of what it means to be fully awake. And so, the journey toward enlightenment is not about reaching some distant mountain or transcending the world. It is about returning home to yourself. Each sign along the path, inner stillness, emotional freedom, forgiveness, connection, trust, and love, does not lead you somewhere new. It leads you back to what has always been within you. The awakening is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, graceful, and deeply personal. It happens when you begin to live with open eyes, a quiet mind, and a compassionate heart. When you can sit in silence and feel peace, when you can face uncertainty and still trust, when you can forgive without resentment and love without condition, you are no longer chasing enlightenment, you are living it. The truth is, you are never separate from it. Enlightenment is not becoming something greater, it is remembering that you already are. So, breathe deeply, let go gently, and allow life to unfold as it will. Walk through the world with awareness, kindness, and humility, for every moment, every joy, every pain, every breath is an invitation to awaken. And when you finally see through the illusion of separation, you will realize that the light you've been seeking has always been shining quietly within you.